Welcome back, everyone, to the Flyin podcast. We are back tonight on a Monday night recording. I'm here tonight with Sam, talking a little recap of Leagues Cup for FC Cincinnati. We're going to do a big kind of deep dive into the transfer window closing. We did get a player, so I know that was the big thing last week, is trying to figure out, who this person was going to be, or possibly multiple people. So we'll talk about that, the second half outlook for the rest of the season, like I mentioned, and then we'll get into a little bit of a preview of the Miami game coming up this Saturday. Sam actually made his way to the FCC2 game, so we'll get his thoughts on being at that one. But first off, Sam, we'll do a little bit of a brief recap of this loss against Philly. We won't go into too much detail because it was not a fun game from our standpoint. But Leagues Cup round of 16, we played Philadelphia Union at home. Ended up being a bummer of a 2-4 loss, unfortunately. But as we start out, what do you see in the lineup for this one?
Obviously, I mean, just like everybody else, the first thing that stands out to you is Corey Baird playing left wing back for the first time in his career, I believe. So that was definitely a shocker to see. I said it right out of the gate, would have liked to seen, a Halsey probably get a start there to bring some energy into the first half. And the other, lineup kind of questions that you look at is Santos gets the start up top. And you get dueling tens with Kubo and Orshano. So I thought that was an interesting mix up top. What do you think?
Yeah, same as you. I mean, Baird is the big one. He had been as a right winger before, or midfielder, but never been as a left wing back. Earlier on in the tournament, they used him as a wing back, but we were already in situations where either the game didn't matter or we were up. So the game's on the line and you want to put your best foot forward. Like, I just don't know how you put somebody in that position and expect them to thrive. So to your point, yeah, I mean, I would have loved to see, getting a young guy in like Halsey in that position, and getting him some minutes, especially from the jump, and see what he can do against a pretty good Philly side, in a good run of form right now too. So other thing, getting Yedlin, as captain again is pretty cool to see. We did have that duo of Awazium and Robinson together. Unfortunately, gave up a lot of goals with that, so we'll touch into that a little bit. But yeah, I think Santos is the right play in the moment. He had been on a little bit of a heater, in the last several games, and through Leagues Cup, he's kind of found his form. We could debate that, a little bit, and should we have gotten more goals out of that front line? But they had chances. So, as we look into the game a little bit, obviously, fourth minute, Sam, like we're already kind of getting behind in things. Like this ball is played over the top by Bedoya, and Yedlin's kind of held up a little bit higher. Their guy runs in and scores, and you're like, here we go. We're down again. But thank God, VAR actually helped us this time.
Yeah, 2 games in a row. We were not gonna go down, a goal in the fourth minute back-to-back games. That would have been, oh my gosh, crushing. I know as soon as the goal went in, we were like, Salentano, why didn't you come off your line? Like, and then we've got three defenders guarding two players, and Yedlin has to recover on the back end, but luckily he's offside by, just a hair. It's one of those things where you're like, man, VAR, like thanks for growing our way this just one time. But it was definitely a sign for things to come.
Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, because you get that moment, and I did feel like we did have some decent chances. You in the first half see Kubo hits the inside of the post on a Santos play over to him that he centers the ball. And that spot, like, does Santos, should he have shot that? Should he have passed it? We got to get Kubo to finish it. We had another chance, I think, in the 41st minute. Santos hit one right at the keeper as well. It wasn't like we weren't without chances then, but you got to capitalize, in those situations. You get to the second half and you sub Acosta in. I think, right after half, I believe he comes in for a full half of play, which we haven't had from him in a while. And you're thinking like, all right, we got our main group back. Let's see something out of it. And 51st minute, it was just like out of nowhere almost is really what my first reaction was. Murphy has to come out and try to get the guy that's running across the play. But, I think they do well in finding that ball behind the back line, and he shoots it quickly, and Roman's kind of caught out.
Yeah, I think both Robinson and Cheeto were kind of caught out of position. Their line wasn't that tight. And to your point, Murphy on the backside, all the way from left center back, had to cut across the box to even contest the shot, which he didn't really do much of. And it was kind of a easy, simple finish. Celentano, like you said, kind of needs to guard that near post a little bit better. But I mean, one of those fundamental formational, issues in that goal.
Yeah, for sure. And like, is that a thing of like communication? I think those two are great players, and they just haven't had a ton of minutes together yet. So I think honestly, if there's a time for there to be lapses in communication, I mean, you'd much rather prefer it in this tournament than end of the season when, playoffs are on the line or even fighting for supporter shield. So I'm okay with them kind of working through these situations. Obviously, don't want them to score, but to at least build on this moment and say, hey, we didn't have it here. How can we talk better? Especially with Murphy too. How can we prevent this from happening? So I guess the next question would be, how do we respond, right? 10 minutes later, they get another goal, and you're like, all right, not great. And their forward, I can't think of his name right now, Bria, I think, or something to the lines of that, but has just been unbelievable. I think he's had like 9 or 10 goals in like 8 games. And that's just a striker, in form. Robinson doesn't close the ball quick enough. The guy just whips one past Roman, which I don't think many keepers in the world would be able to save it the way that guy put it on frame. But yeah, we just need to step faster on the ball is really what it comes down to. Robinson had a little bit of an off night in this game too.
I mean, yeah, on that play, you could definitely see, they dropped back way too far. Nobody put pressure on the ball when it came into our half. And on that play, you could see Robinson had his eye on, the potential overlapping run, that could have happened there. And unfortunately lost sight of the guy in front of him. And, to your point, the Philly striker just slots it away, no problem.
Yeah. And from there, you're like, man, desperation mode kind of thing. Like this is our best team that we got, even with Lucho out there and, 0-2 down. And you're like, man, this is a big bummer. But the team came back, and I'll give them credit. 66 minute, we finally get Buka to score. Last game, he had one that was called back on VAR. Just great interplay between Lucho, Kelsey. Lucho goes down the end line, saves the ball, I think. Actually, I think I'm thinking of the other one on that one, but yeah, for the second one. But at least Buka gets the goal on this one. He actually shoots between the defenders, and sneaks it away past the keeper on the far post, which was a nice play.
Yeah, yeah. Once again, very tight, just tight plays in the 18-yard box for us. That little 1-2 with Kelsey and Lucho was phenomenal. Unfortunately, too many bodies just in the way for Lucho to be able to put it in. And I thought the same about Buka's goal, but he puts it right between the defender's legs. And honestly, just another world-class goal by Buka. He's been turning it on this summer, from like the end of May, June to like now. He's really turned it on, as far as his contributions go. And I look forward to seeing his hot run continue.
Yeah, I mean, great shout for him. He's just been really, really good in the last probably month and a half, especially in finding form and finding an offensive form too, which has been neat to see. Which leads to, we're down 1-2, but we get another one back. And this is the one that I think I was referring to. Lucho goes down to the end line on the through ball, keeps the ball in, and finds Yedlin in the middle, which props to him. We've seen him do this so many times, is just cut across the goal is what I meant to say, and just slot it in. And I'm really pumped to see him get, I think, his first goal in FCC history for him. Right?
I think it was second.
Was
Might
it
have been
second?
second.
I'm pretty sure it
Yeah.
was. Yeah, one or two for him now for the orange and blue, but awesome to see. And in that moment, like super pumped that we came back. We're tied 2-2. And we don't even get but a minute to celebrate, at least that it's even. Maybe we'll go to PKs, but Philly was the better squad on the night. They get the one goal and then they just put us down with another one in the 84th minute and put the game out of hand, which, again, at home, we can't be complacent, is really what it comes down to. And we have to be better in these moments, especially you put all that work in to come back. And then it was just like they just were like, all right, that's all we got. So unfortunate, our Leagues Cup run comes to an end. We did have decent chances, decent comeback. Final impressions, anything that you saw, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, like I had said earlier, I mean, themes of the game to me on the Philly goals specifically was three defenders marking two offensive players. That seemed to happen a whole lot on their chances. And then obviously 1v1 defending. It just we cannot get it down right now. Our defenders just are not ready for whatever the attacking squad is ready to put on us, especially 1v1. And then once again, no first half energy aside from like maybe one or two chances the past couple games. The first half has just kind of been awful, and we've relied. What was it? I think all of Leagues Cup, all of our goals came in the second half, if I'm not mistaken. So not even having a single first half goal in Leagues Cup.
We did have the last game, Santos Laguna. You had Orishano that had the equalizer.
The first one. Yeah, the
Yep.
first one.
That
So
was
having
like, I
won.
think the only one. Yeah. Yeah.
Having
So,
won. Yeah.
but besides that, you're right. I mean, the start wasn't good enough. And I don't know if, is that like it's not an MLS match sort of thing. Like, is there not as much interest to start or energy? You have rotations of lineups and stuff like that. That could definitely play into it. But yeah, still crazy that, we ended Leagues Cup top in expected goals with 11.65 goals. Um, I mean, I guess the chances were there is what that's showing, but like it didn't feel like that in moments. But if you tuck a few of those away, maybe we're saying something different. But my overall thought, on this year's Leagues Cup, we were pretty hard on it last year. Um, it's kind of crazy, honestly, Sam. Four MLS teams in the Final Four, no Liga MX teams. Second straight year, though, it'll be a MLS versus MLS in the final. So, the big talk is, CONCACAF Champions Cup earlier on in the season for us, but later on in the season for them. Leagues Cup, later on in the season for us, earlier on in the season for them. It kind of balances each other out in some ways, but the domination of this tournament especially has to be said about the games that are played in the US.
Yeah, I was about to touch on. I mean, I feel like this year more than, the past couple years, we definitely saw the difference it makes when you're playing like as a League MX team, you're playing away from home every single game in Leagues Cup. So if I mean, you guys know, listeners, how we feel about Leagues Cup, right? It's no, secret, but if you're gonna do it right, then do it right, right? Like I think the atmospheres they have in Mexico are one of the best in the world, right? And you want to showcase that alongside the MLS. If you want to bring these two, leagues together, I know isn't Canada supposed to be a part of Leagues Cup technically as well, or
I mean technically the MLS teams,
yeah.
that are from Canada, but you don't get the Canadian division teams, I guess.
How crazy would that be if we got all three?
That would be kind of wild. I don't know if those teams could match up well, though.
They wouldn't, but I'm just saying, like, I think,
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's like looking at, can we do a combination of like US Open Cup with
yeah.
the Canadian Cup or something like that? And just open it up to everyone. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it was as brutal as last year. There are still some things that I think can change and improve upon.
Yeah.
My question, and asking you this for FC Cincinnati specifically, did we play it right with the personnel? I know Pat said, this is the way we're going to do it. We're going to go out every game and try to win. We're going to try to win this tournament. He obviously did have a rotation in some of these games. Once we get to the knockout phase, you start playing more of your, main people. But would you have done it different, or do you think that was the right call?
No, yeah, it obviously you look back and things definitely should have been done different. I think for the most part, we we had, the right personnel out there. I will say that. Um, I'm sure he's a nice guy and he's been a great player in his career, but a little less Corey Baird during the Leagues Cup would have been nice, to be honest with you. Like after the very first game, trotting him out there. He just no energy, no energy whatsoever. And I don't wish that upon anyone. Like I want this to motivate him, right? So obviously we want the best for him because he's part of the club. So seeing him out there not looking like not he's not giving it at all, like anything, is kind of tough to watch. But I will say, at the beginning of Leagues Cup, we were calling for more young guys, right? And we got to see it against NYCFC, which was nice. However, we also got to see what a young squad looks like. And it's a squad that goes down 0-2 and has to be carried by the starters in the second half. And, we win 4-2. So I will say it's a learning curve and a learning moment for those young guys. And that was nice to see from Pat in Leagues Cup.
Yeah, I wouldn't hardly, I don't think it was a complete failure. Obviously, this year we did
Oh,
better than
yep.
we did last year. It is
Yep.
what it comes down to. And every year you would want to improve. The team that we have, we expect to make it far in any tournament that we're in. And, especially playing at home in all these games too. Like we got to be winning these. And it leads to what does that look like in the playoffs, especially with a knockout type situation. Um, the personnel standpoint, yeah, I think getting young players like that is definitely the time. We didn't have a US Open Cup time to trial these guys and see what they've got. So this is the next best thing. Or for like Corey Baird coming back from injury, you're not going to play him in MLS games. So now might be the actual time to play him more. But if you're going to have to switch him to a different position to even get him on the field, like that tells me he's not doing what he needs to do in his main position, even.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you bring in another striker now, like he's probably fourth on the depth chart. So moving forward, I don't know how much you see of that. Unfortunately, like we said, we brought him in, we had high hopes about it, but at some point you have to look at it and say, is it a detriment to your team? In this past game, like first half, luckily we go 0-0, but there were moments where like we got caught out and they picked apart that side, especially with having, Murphy next to a guy that had never played left wing back. Like, is that really the right call in a knockout tournament? When we were going for it, like put Halsey in that situation, like we said. So to personnel questions, I'd say yes and no. Obviously it's easy for us to say now and looking back at it and say something differently. But we did make it, a little bit further than last year, maybe next year, even more. I still won't look at Leagues Cup and say like I'm thrilled about it. Like I'm sure you feel the same way, Sam. Like
Oh,
I'm ready
yeah.
for the
Yeah.
MLS season to come back. I don't honestly care really about what other teams are doing during this tournament. Whereas during the MLS season, like I pay more attention to what other teams are doing because it means more. So there's just no incentive for it. Like we've mentioned before, this is a made up tournament by the league. Like there's no real like other point than what we've seen for, hey, making CONCACAF Champions Cup. But the fans, I think, kind of echoed that as well with the attendance too.
Yeah. The attendance was scarce around the entire league. So I don't I don't know at what point does the MLS kind of stop because they're throwing so much money into marketing this tournament. At what point do they just kind of cut their losses? And does it live and they just don't market it as much, or how does that work? I'm interested to see what the future is going to be, but like I said, if we're gonna team up with different leagues, like let's do it right.
Yeah. Or like, if it's going to be this much of a joke and you're not going to play people, like let's go back and play some of the Premier League teams or something and get those guys an opportunity to play against these guys in their summer tournaments or something if we're not going to take it serious. I don't know.
Yeah.
Obviously like there's still wild moments that happen that, without Leagues Cup you wouldn't see it, but is that the right thing for, the MLS? I don't know. What is interesting, you mentioned like attendance and everything. You look at like, Messi didn't even play in this tournament. And it seemed like last year that was the only thing that kept like Leagues Cup alive. And obviously Miami ended up winning. But this year, like you go and you look at their tickets and it's $20 or $15. Even in Atlanta, it was like $8 a ticket. They definitely, I would think, took a hit. and then actually seeing, what teams covered some of the games with their season ticket package and what ones didn't, how the attendance kind of dropped off past that too. I mean, it just shows the fans don't really care otherwise. Obviously, we're going to support our team, but like that's where I think we both stand, and I would imagine a lot of people feel the same way. It was kind of a nice break in the middle of the season, with how saturated it does get, but you could shorten the season up, bring it down a month or take 2 weeks off during the All-Star break and then go back into it. We don't need like a full 5, 6 week break, between MLS games. But Sam, I think you have a trivia question for us though before we go to the break here, and then we'll talk a little bit more on the second half of the season.
Yeah, I'm gonna be testing the mind of Ryan here today. How many number nines has FC Cincinnati had in club history? So that would be MLS and USL days, and then a couple extra bonus points if you can name a couple names.
I'm gonna go five.
Five number nines is
Five
the
number
guess.
nines and Brenner, Bupenza. Want to say maybe a Coley from the USL days, and then Gioacchini now. I'm missing one person. I don't know the fifth one would be, but that's what I got for you.
All right. All right. Fifth guy is a mystery guy, but we'll get the answer to you on the other side.
Hey everyone, we have some exciting news. We are thrilled to announce a partnership with Betstamp and Sign Up Expert, opening up an incredible opportunity for you to join some of our favorite sports books to get the best odds and new user offers.
Head over to our dedicated page at signupexpert.com/flyinlions to explore a selection of sportsbooks tailored to your region, each with unique offerings.
If you're ready to take your sports betting to the next level and show some love for our brand, we highly recommend signing up for your next sportsbook through our Sign Up Expert link. Once again, visit signupexpert.com/flyinlions to place your bets today. Enjoy. Welcome back, everyone. We are here again tonight chatting a little bit of FC Cincinnati. First half of this episode, unfortunately, had to cover a recap of Philadelphia Union game, but now we're into more of the meat and potatoes of this episode. I think all the stuff that will be interesting for the rest of the season and pertains to that as well. But before we get to all of that, we do have some interesting moments that happened this past week. Sam, what was your card of the week?
Yeah, like Ryan said, a lot of interesting things going on. Premier League starts, all the other, leagues, top five leagues in Europe start. So got a lot of things to talk about. And namely, one Yerson Mosquera. He had his Premier League debut Saturday for Wolves against Arsenal. In the game, they go down 1-0 to Arsenal, and he's kind of battling Kai Havertz near the end line. There's a bit of a scuffle. Havertz attempts to pull him down. Mosquera doesn't like it, and he grabs Havertz's throat and shoves him into the ground. That's the first time. Later in the match, down 2-0 now to Arsenal, he proceeds to try and get Gabriel Jesus to kind of like hurry up during the latter half of the match by grabbing his right butt cheek. And Jesus does not like it, shoves him, and Mosquera proceeds to fall, flop, and try and create a spectacle of it. So Mosquera was in his debut out here just trying to get anything he could for his Wolf squad.
That's a great shout for your card. Would that be a red card of the week then?
It's got to be a red card. I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah, that was a wild moment. I had to watch the game just because I'd love to see Mosquera starting in this moment. Like awesome for him, first Premier League like debut, all of it against Arsenal, a good team. And then you see the dark arts come out. And we got the roll around on the ground last year. We got the throwing our hands up. We got the crazy dancing, but I think he learned a little bit from Miazga there and was doing some crazy stuff. Yeah, in the Premier League, Sam, like you're not gonna get away with that. I mean, it's gonna be everywhere, and it was. I mean, both videos were viral, and I think he might be the most hated man right now in the Premier League.
Well, he also didn't receive a card.
He didn't get a
for
card for it,
for
which like
either.
props to him.
Yeah, for either.
Yeah, which is kind of funny. The first one, I think like he definitely goes after the guy's throat, but he was also trying to like brace his fall in some ways too. He definitely knows what he's doing, though.
Yeah.
That's, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
100% he knows what he's doing. Pretty funny.
Very funny. Ryan, what was yours?
My card of the week, we're going to get into it here in a minute, but the differing times for the transfer window closing. So, our transfer window for the MLS closed on the 14th. The European window will end at the end of August. So, if teams in the MLS are actively trying to, buy these players, well, the window closes and then you got to stop what you're doing and other teams can continue. If we're fighting for other European players, aka Josh Sargent, we don't have the time to close these deals. So why not spread it out? Why not keep it the same, at least in this current window, for the same timeline? Like it makes no sense why you'd have to shorten it. The free agent signings can go all the way to September 13th. So, in this situation specifically, why are we not able to continue negotiating? Well, the window closed. So it is frustrating. It puts, I would imagine, a big strain on our personnel. And, hey, these clubs from Europe are saying we have multiple offers from these teams. Does that mean MLS guys have to put out more money right away to get these guys to come in? Like, what incentives do you have to close the deal, before the window closes for the European one, what, 2, 3 weeks later? So it's added stress for these GMs. Obviously, I'm not sitting in that position, lucky me, but um, I think it limits MLS teams, especially FC Cincinnati, from bringing in these guys. Um, in our situation, Bupenza, namely, we get rid of him at the end of the window. We have less time to negotiate. And that's a disadvantage for our team in this situation, especially.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think the window needs to be stretched a little bit, especially if you're a league that wants to add more star power and wants to add more value to it. You should be able to stretch it a little bit if you want to have those players come in, give teams time. I know, I think for the window as it is, I will say you already have enough time as it is. If you don't get a deal done by then, like that's on you. So like I see both sides of it. Especially in the case of us, like Bupenza should have been out at the beginning of the transfer window,
Right.
right? And then we should have gotten somebody like halfway through or like near the end if we really were going to take the time and the research to find somebody else, but we didn't, right? So like that's on us. So I can kind of see both sides of it. But as somebody who wants to see the MLS succeed, I think increasing the transfer window will help add value to it. More players come in, more time for MLS teams to kind of, put funds together, whatever they need to do to get that quality in the league.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be a serious league or a top five, league in the world, you have to start thinking about how do we fit in those scenarios, or like you said, getting better players. If you're really thinking at a Giroux, you've been negotiating for a while in that situation, or even Bupenza last year, you negotiated or you at least talked to these players prior to the window. The window opens, you sign them, you're good to go. But in the situation where A, B, and C falls apart, and you're looking at option D or E, you don't really have as much of that time to put things together. So this leads to our next conversation. So this transfer deadline closed in, really at the last minute, it seems like FC Cincinnati snags Nicolas Gioacchini, who was a former player of St. Louis City last year. He's on loan this year from a Serie A team in Italy, Como. Como's beautiful, by the way. So poor guy had to go from Como to Cincinnati and join the orange and blue next to the beautiful Ohio River. But yeah, good player, solid striker. 10 goals in 32 games with St. Louis last year. He is a U.S. men's national team player who previously played with Miles Robinson, Matt Miazga. This was back in 2021, I think, for Gold Cup. He got to play with those guys. So He's familiar with some of the guys on our team, which I think is an advantage, and at least knows some guys, knows the system. The system's very similar to what he's played with in the past. Excited to see what he can do.
This is a straight up loan though, correct?
Yeah, good call. So straight up loan, no option to buy, which at first, like, we're scrolling through the socials and trying to figure out, who we're looking at. And for a minute there's a guy that we're looking at from Sweden, a center back, which would have been a U22. Didn't end up working out. He apparently had a really good potential. He's a 19-year-old. But then you look at, like, all right, who are we going to sign? At some points there's conversations like we're not going to get anyone. We're not going to improve this team or anything. And Albright had it dealing, man. He had some stuff going. We'll talk a little bit about Gioacchini and get into the other ones, but my initial thought, like, it freezes up for next year. That's an easy thing to say, but again, the window's now. You got to win now. You have a Lucho Costa, you have these defenders, you have the spine of the team. You got to get somebody in there to score. And we see in this last game, like, if we put those chances away or Giacchini's in there and he can score those, like, it's a different game. So I'm happy to see that we get, like, what, a 9-game loan out of this guy, essentially, because that's what we have left in the season plus playoffs. But how quickly can he integrate with the squad?
Yeah, I was reading a little bit. Matt Doyle, writer for the MLS, had given FC Cincinnati a B transfer window grade. Including the Cheeto signing, getting rid of Bupenza, and then now adding Niko. And he kind of made a pretty decent point in saying the signing of Niko was kind of a good low risk move, right, for both parties. Niko really wasn't getting playing time over in Italy. So him coming back to the MLS, which is a league he's very familiar with, against opponents he's very familiar with. But to his credit too, Matt also said that he's never played with the likes of somebody like Lucho, like Orishano, these guys that can create chances for him up top. And I think with him just being alone, I'm more hoping this kicks Kelsey into gear back where his first form used to be, right? Because we have a buy option for Kelsey, we don't for Niko. So maybe if Niko starts playing well, maybe we can start going back to having two strikers up top like we did when we first had Brenner and Vasquez, and they were killing it up top. So maybe those two young guys can get it going, for the rest of the 9 games, like you said.
Yeah, no, great shout, especially because, everything is pointing towards Giacchini being a better player with another striker next to him.
Mhm.
He's not the solo guy to hold up the ball or, to actually create those chances through the midfield. He's more of a play it behind kind of guy and run on it, or a poacher type. So, yeah, I think that's a really good point. If he can boost Kelsey into that scenario, I think that would be the best case scenario. I think that would be the best moving forward. They need to get good service though, and we talked about that a little bit during Leagues Cup. Is like, even with Kelsey, these are big bodies. Like, I think Giacchini's 6 foot two and pretty physical. We need to have, Yedlin whipping in balls. I really think that his inclusion, like you said, brings another striker up top, and I think we will have Orishano hopefully to play some balls out from the left. So that'll be something to look out for. I do like we mentioned, the loan move, at least in this current scenario. It seemed to be the last kind of situation that we looked at. Obviously we wanted to buy this big DP player. So we had offered Weston McKennie. He toured the facility, would have been a nice addition, but a midfielder. But then the conversations turned towards Josh Sargent of Norwich, big player, U.S. men's national team guy who actually scored this past weekend in the championship. $20 million offer. The valuation wasn't met by the club. Norwich, I think, was looking more around 25 for a young striker who's been just phenomenal lately. And then, that is still apparently ongoing. There might be something with that one. We'll see where that goes in the winter. I think St. Louis fans would be very, very upset if that happened, being that Sargent's from St. Louis. We just got their striker from last year. They do own his rights, so we'd have to pay that out. But from all it sounds like, that wouldn't be a problem. So, one being plan A, plan B goes down, but then you look at plan C, Sam. So we hear from Tom Bogert that Bertarame from Monterrey, the striker who notoriously had actually turned down a move to Portland earlier in the year for 15 million, was offered 15 million from FC Cincinnati. The valuation was met. The player was, okay with things. They had the media stuff ready to schedule. And in the last minute, he pulled out because of family reasons. So very interesting. I don't know what the family reasons were there. No one really kind of disclosed that, but I don't know. It's fascinating if it was a Vasquez Bertarames, kind of flop there within the same season.
I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, listeners or Ryan, I don't think we've ever said open like that we, doubt, Albright, that we don't think he,
For
can
sure.
do it, or oh my gosh, he's doing such a bad. No, like he is the best GM we've ever had,
Right.
and he continues to grind. He continues to grind. Just because we're not seeing headlines does not mean there aren't, things going on in the background. To be able to be that close to getting a player like Josh Sargent, the talk, after we put stuff out on Twitter, people are like, "Oh, why would you want, a striker from the championship?" and blah 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 blah. It's like, do you see the numbers the man's putting up? Like, can you
Well,
imagine the
I
numbers
think
he
they're
would put up
upset
in the
that
MLS?
yeah,
Like,
they're more upset from a US standpoint that he'd be coming back to the
once
MLS.
once again,
But
once again, these U.S. men's national team fans, like, guys, just whatever's best for the player. Like, if the player wants to come, let him come. Like, I don't really. It's another one of those situations where the quality of play, like, I, Brandon Vasquez, when he was playing for the U.S. men's national team, right, he was balling out for us, and then he scores in what, two out of his three games that he played for
right.
the U.S. men's national team, right? So it correlates, specifically if you play for FC Cincinnati.
Yeah, no, good point. Yeah, I think that was the big talk is like, is our GM doing enough? Like, we're not hearing these things. Where are the rumors? This and that. Like, it's going on. It's just in years
Yeah, he's
past, you
killing it.
would you would have people that would leak these things and you'd know about it, but very closed lip this window and said, we're going to try to make this stuff happen. And if not now, we're going to set ourselves up for, in the winter to potentially strike gold with this. And
Yeah.
you can't question the ambition. Like, I don't
Oh,
want to
yeah.
hear that we don't have ambition and we're not going for it. Like, he went through options A, B, and C, and we looked at D and said, well, D last year had more goals than Vasquez did for our team. How can we be mad about that?
Yeah.
And with a team that was first in the Western Conference, didn't have Lucho Acosta on it. So, like, I really think Gioacchini is a good option for the moment in the current scenario. I mean, they really went for it, and it sounds like they were, family reasons away from getting one of the best strikers in the region. So
Yeah.
that tells you, ambition is there. They're putting all of the effort towards it. And I mean, you can't say ownership isn't willing to pay. You cut your losses with, Bupenza, but then you turn around and you're going to potentially offer 20 million to Josh Sargent. I mean, who else wants to do that? Sam, I'll tell you what, Philadelphia isn't doing that.
No, I mean, 20 million is, the record that would have been a smashing the record fee, right? I think what the next closest, I think I tweeted it out, but the next
16 million.
closest, yeah, 16, right? Like, come on. Are you serious? Like, that's ambitious. But as far as moving on from the transfer window, I know there was a lot of like specifically in like the last 48 hours of the transfer window is always like huge. It's just you got to keep your eye to Twitter and watch it the whole time. So it was definitely exciting. I think we've got a good amount of pieces. I just health. Health is it's been the theme of the season and it will continue to be until the rest of the season. So, Ryan, looking at the outlook for the rest of the season, I know now we're looking at okay, with what we've got, what's the best starting 11 that we can put together?
I'm going to real quickly go back to we do have time. You speak on like health. We have until September 13th. If there's free agents out there, like two U22 spots are open in a senior roster spot. I don't expect us to do really any of that. Maybe a senior roster spot for defense, like maybe a veteran guy that they could sign or something. But I don't see them filling that. So to your point, an outlook and what we have moving forward is what you're going to see. I think everyone that you have hopefully can stay healthy. But my best starting lineup for, let's say playoffs started right now. Roman in goal, Orishano, Murphy, Awazium. You have Miles Robinson, Yedlin, Buka. You have Obi, Lucho, Kelsey, and Gioacchini. That's my starting lineup right there.
I'll throw Kubo up top with Niko instead of Kelsey to start off.
Yeah, that's a good shout. And honestly, I really am interested to see if they throw Gioacchini into it, not having played with these guys, And I think Kubo is probably where they'll go just because of his form right now. But who's going to pair up best with the other striker if they're going to go that way is the question.
Well, and then formation, right? So
Yeah.
obviously throughout this whole season with injuries, we've been experimenting. We've gone, to the sword formation at times, right? More attacking. We've gone more defensive. Now with the signing of Niko, I wonder how that's going to impact it. If we go with the sword formation, we could take out, you know, to, for your formation, right? Say we take out a guy like Kelsey, right? Take him out. Kubo as your nine or Niko as your nine, probably Niko as your nine. And then you have dueling tens with Lucho and Orishano. Do you put Kubo as left wing back or do you put a guy like Halsey at left wing back? Like what does that look like then?
Yeah, I mean, we saw Kubo, I think, in one game as a left wing back this year. Um, I don't think they would like prefer to put him there. They'd probably put him on the
Oh,
right
yeah.
side than the left, or maybe do you see Yedlin go to the left side and then Kubo on the right? If you're saying the best that we have in the best formation, like you have to put your best foot forward. We've seen Orishano excel in that dueling 10 spot. In
Especially during Leagues Cup.
Yeah, Leagues Cup 2 against Miami for sure, in their defense. So in this coming game, we'll get to it here in a little bit. I think they'll probably honestly try to go back to that. Moving forward though, like as long as Assad's out, I just don't know if they feel comfortable enough with the options they have at left wing back,
Yeah.
where you might have to go with Orishano in that spot for now.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think to have the comfortability of having a guy like Orishano be back there, I know you sacrifice a little bit of his attacking quality, right? But with the addition of Niko and Lucho's getting healthier now, I think it balances out a little bit better. But you have to put him on the left side because we need. I know he's not like Barreal, but we need
Hmm.
him to be crossing in. If he's gonna be on the left side, he can't only be on his left foot. If he's gonna be on his left foot, cross it in with your left. Like just sprint past the guy because you're faster than everybody else on that side. So same thing with Yedlin on the right.
The best we've seen Orishano though is when he's been cutting in. And if
I
he's
know
if
that's
he's
that's
left
the
on
weird
that
thing though.
side, like
Yeah,
you're almost kind of wasting that at that spot. So yeah, I mean, I don't envy their decision on this because it's hard to say what's the best for the team. We
yeah,
haven't had a large enough sample size with the current players that we have. And the question comes down, like you mentioned, to Lucho's health. This past game against Philly, he gets stepped on and he goes and grabs his foot. He doesn't look quite the same Lucho, but then like turns around and has an unbelievable assist. Like the dude's just magical and can make moments happen, like we mentioned, out of nothing. So as long as he's on the field, I feel like we have a good shot. He's gonna make all the players around him better. I mean, it's like the Tom Brady effect, for FC Cincinnati. So how do him and Gioacchini work? That's really what I'm gonna look for in this next several games. If we look at it, like we mentioned, 9 game stretch to end this season. It's a hard stretch, Sam. Miami, Montreal, Columbus Crew, Minnesota, Nashville, LAFC, NYCFC, Orlando, and Philly. 4 of those games are at home. I mean, that's pretty tough go.
got to win at home. Got to win at home.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you got to win Montreal for sure. The Crew game, I mean, at home is going to be huge.
LAFC would be huge as well.
LAFC at home would set a good standard going into the very, very end of the season, especially being at home. The stars are going to be out for that game, I'm sure.
Yep.
That'll be one to watch, even honestly, maybe more than the Crew game at this point because of who they have.
Yeah.
I don't know. I say that now, but hell is real. Let's be honest. That's the big game. But yeah, I'm really excited to see where this group can take us. I still have some doubts just based on like how we did in this last month and a half. But again, like we didn't have a healthy Lucho. We didn't have a striker who can just score goals, and now it seems like we do. So you got to be excited about that. And we brought someone in. We didn't sit on our hands. We didn't say, "Hey, this is what we got." We have an ownership group that says we want to win and we're going to make it happen. Unlike some of the other teams in this city, hate to say it, we're adding pieces. We're making this team better, and that's the importance. But Sam, teams that are better this year, FC Cincinnati 2 has been awesome this year. They did not win this past game against Carolina Core. They lost 0-1. But you had a really good experience at this game. Go ahead and give us your thoughts.
Yeah, like you said, tough loss. That 1-0 loss, they conceded a goal in extra time. Not something you want to see a lot, especially as a team. It's their first home loss since May 26th, right? So this team has been on a heater. And it's been back-to-back games, honestly, that they've been held to 0 goals in open play as well. Their last game, they won in PKs, I believe, 6-5. So, a little bit of a drought going on with them right now, but still in first in the Eastern Conference standings. But as far as my experience, it was good. It was great. I was given a press pass, being on the sideline, in the press box. Especially, I appreciated the press box during the rain. That was, oh my gosh, that was great. Got to stay dry a little bit, but yeah, word from, the FC Cincinnati staff is pretty much, even after a 1-0 loss, no matter the result, Tyron Marshall is actually a pretty level-headed guy. Like he understands the role of his team and how they play. And it really comes down to the development of the players. He doesn't really get caught up on results and is more about, the effort and the growth that you're trying to accumulate there. I just hope that, we can continue to build a relationship with the FC Cincinnati comms team and, maybe get out to an actual FCC game.
For sure. Yeah, no, it sounded like a really cool opportunity. For those, again, who aren't familiar, FC Cincinnati 2 plays in the next pro league, so the one step down. They play at NKU. Really cool opportunity to go out if you can find tickets, because honestly, it's been pretty cool to see. Almost every game has been heavily attended. They're still in first in the Eastern Conference, even for the last couple of results. We do play Toronto 2 on September 1st coming up. So go and support them. You're going to be seeing a lot of those guys in the future, between the likes of Sharilla, Benalcazar, I think Daly as well,
Ben Stitz,
Mamba Dem, Ben Stitz. Like they have a lot of good talent you'd see maybe here and there, in years past, but they're creating a system that's very much like the Philadelphia Union, where a lot of these guys are going to get really good opportunities with the first team. A lot of them are practicing with them, but they're going to be geared up and ready to go, I think, for our main team, which will make it a little bit easier on roster decisions and maybe not having to go out and buy as many guys. I know we love that. Like, that's exciting, but when you have young guys that can come in and fill like, Dado have, like Halsey has been able to do, like that's been really cool to see those guys start to integrate and become starters. This next wave is going to be, even better in my opinion. So something to look out for.
yeah, yeah. I'm happy to provide the content. That's
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking though of games coming up, this coming Saturday, we play Miami away, which will be a very interesting game. We just beat the snot out of them last time, 6-1. Pretty embarrassing loss for them. I think Sergio Busquets is gonna come out in this game a little bit angry from the way that we played against them. But overall, against Inter Miami, we have 4 wins, 4 draws, and one of the draws actually was in the MLS play. Um,
4 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw. So like both,
Four, okay, there we go.
yeah.
4 wins, 4 losses, in one draw. We did
Sorry.
have that Open Cup PK shootout from last year, which was a heartbreaker. But I don't think Lionel Messi is going to play in this game, Sam.
Yeah, I think what I've been reading. So obviously, I think Argentina has a September camp that is coming up, and I don't believe Messi reported to it, right? Still injured. So I think the reports were saying he's more likely to play in Miami's match against Philly rather than against us.
Which is again huge, you know. Didn't play against him the first time. Somehow probably not gonna play against him in this one. Is the attendance gonna be not great because of it? Like it seems like the Miami fans just show up if he's there, honestly. I hate to call a spade, but that's the way it's been. Like they still have good players, they're still in first, but like they don't really seem to
If
support.
he's yeah, I mean, if he's there at the game, maybe he's just there to see Lucho because they're best buds.
It's true.
So maybe he's dapping Lucho up after the game. Maybe they're going to get dinner. Maybe he's at the game and that's why attendance is so big.
I don't know, man. Look out for the defense for them. They boosted their defense during the transfer window. They did get a couple guys on loan from South America. They're going to be younger than the last time we played them. They were very old and slow. But you know, I think we will probably see very similar to what we saw against Philly. The question will obviously be, do we get Gioacchini in there to start? Any opinion on that?
I would hope so. I think the bigger question is Lucho starting, right? After
Yeah.
not starting the past couple games, do we throw him out there against Miami? Because he's had a little bit of an extended break rather than you know continuing to play in Leeds Cup. So I'm curious to see if they go with both, if they go with Lucho and Nico out there.
I think you get Lucha for sure. Nico's the question, probably 45 minutes, unless he
Yeah.
came in and was like, you know, fully fit, ready to go. Depends on how he's practicing, obviously.
Mhm.
But it's gonna be hot down in Miami. That's the biggest thing. You're gonna see a lot of tired legs, even though like they've had this much of, they had what, 10 days between the last game, but it's
Some
always
water
humid
breaks
down
probably,
there.
right?
Probably, you know, I would imagine so. Um, but it's tough to play down in Miami. Obviously, the fans aren't quite there, but the heat is always difficult. But you know, I expect us to have a good showing in this game. We won last year down there as well, which was pretty cool to see. I think we were mad about the U.S. Open Cup game. I think in this game, I think honestly, I'm gonna go 2-2 in this one. I think we're gonna tie.
That's a good shout. That's a good shout. Um, Man, I don't want us to take the L. I don't want to,
That would
but
be a terrible way to start.
I could see us losing 1-2.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say, like, you know, they're going to be upset about the game. They just lost to the Crew in a terrible way. You know, they were up the whole game, and then the Crew scored what, three unanswered goals against them.
Yeah.
So that'll be tough. They get what, Diego Gomez back, I think. You know, we didn't get to play against him the last time. That's a guy that's going overseas to the Premier League at the end of the year. So a lot of young players for them, even though they don't have Messi. I think, you know, from our side, like we've been up and down in form, but playing on the road, Sam, number one
We've been
team in the
hot.
MLS,
We've been hot.
number one team in the MLS in terms of our record. We've been able to find ways to win or at least get points. Like, I just can't think of the last time we had a draw in an MLS game, though. You know, was it like the beginning of the season?
No, no, it had to have been sooner than that. I don't.
Like, I think we're due for a solid, you know, 2-2 draw is what I'm thinking. And then back at home against Montreal, we're going to get a win.
All right,
So
we'll see.
before we go, give me this trivia question and answer.
Yep. So just to refresh, trivia of the week was how many number nines has FC Cincinnati had in club history, MLS and USL? Ryan went with five, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
The answer is eight. We have had
Whoa.
eight number nines. First one was Okoli. Second was GB.
Hmm.
Third was Tomi Amiobo. Amiobi.
Miobi.
Yeah. And then Fernando Adi. So that was the big one that I
Hmm.
was like, oh, like you should have gotten that one.
How
Um,
memorable was Fernando Adi? Oh
I
man.
and then after him was Adrian Regaton.
Oh yeah.
Yep. And then Aaron Bupenza, and then now Niko.
All right. Brenner, you said Brenner too,
Oh,
right?
Brenner's in there too. Sorry. Brenner's in
Yeah.
there too. Yeah. Brenner's after Reggaeton.
Reggaeton, another memorable one there too. Wasn't even a striker, I don't think. He was more of a winger, wasn't he?
Yeah, but they gave him the number 9 jersey.
Yeah. Interesting. I didn't realize we had that many, but Nico's gonna hold it for 9 games plus,
9 games,
probably.
nine on the jersey. Come
Yeah,
on.
yeah. I mean, well, when we have playoffs, expecting us to go all the way, that's another what, 5 or 6 games at least.
Yeah.
We'll see. But yeah, I love that question. I had to go back and look at the last time we drew, Sam. It was
Yeah.
against
Hit me.
Charlotte.
Was that
Charlotte
at
away.
home? Oh,
Charlotte
wait.
away. We had I think it was a Bupenza equalizer actually in like the 90th minute.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because no, that was the Yedlin back heel.
Yedlin backheel to him. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was the last time that we did. So I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully it's a win though. Obviously we want to win to start off this run for the end of the year. They got to set the tone right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it. Saturday, big game.
Big game. We'll be back next week. We'll talk all about it and hopefully a debut by Niko Gioacchini, hopefully with a goal. That'd be pretty special as well. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you guys next week.